Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, April 11th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 145 days. The game against Michigan in 229 days. The spring game coming up on Saturday. And with the spring game comes a lot of visits and a lot of recruiting news. And we have a bunch of recruiting news on today's show. We have done a bunch of shows mostly focused on the offensive side of the ball recently, because that's been where a lot of the action has been in the recruiting world. And so we always get comments, oh, that's great, but what about the defense? They got to fix the defense. All right, friends, here you go. We're going to be talking all about the defense today and guys who are seemingly trending Ohio State's way on the defensive side of the ball for the class of 2024. Trending his way towards being my guest today is Marc Givler. He is from BuckeyeHuddle.com. He has been burning the midnight oil with lots of visits, lots of news, lots of magical orb of wonderment predictions trending all over the internet. And Mark, I guess let's start at linebacker. Peyton Pierce, coming out of the great state of Texas. He is someone who was not really looking like an Ohio State potential commit before James Laurinaitis came. And then all of a sudden, boy, things seem to have changed a little bit in Peyton Pierce's recruitment since then.
Yeah, Ohio State has really picked up a lot of momentum there, just kind of steadily since James Laurinaitis was hired. Peyton Pierce was on Ohio State's radar before that, but Oklahoma and Notre Dame seemed to have most of the traction there. I had a lot of people tell me they thought he was going to Notre Dame back before Laurinaitis was hired. Obviously, Laurinaitis coming from Notre Dame, great relationship with Peyton Pierce. Things have really kind of 180'd. In the last few months, and now Ohio State's in a pretty strong position. You still have Oklahoma and Notre Dame chipping away, and Texas A&M just had him on campus recently, and they're working really hard trying to keep him in state. But right now, all the momentum's in Ohio State's direction for Peyton Pierce.
Yeah, it does. It does seem like that one is trending towards Ohio State. Not a done deal by any means, but certainly one of the linebackers may be more likely to end up in the class of 2024 than some of the other guys you may have heard discussed. Now we got to talk about corner, and corner is a spot where they really do need to reload because there are a lot of guys who have been on the team. It feels like they just got here and they could already be headed out the door potentially after this season if they have good years. Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, like, come on, these guys just got here. It seems like overnight, recently, and all of a sudden they're potentially NFL draft eligible. So as you're sort of trying to reload that room, that is a position of some significant need this cycle. And there are a bunch of guys. There are two guys in state who are, you've seen Michigan people be kind of surprisingly optimistic about. Let's start, I guess, with those two guys, Bryce West out of Glenville and Aaron Scott out of Springfield, both corners that are seemingly at or near the top of the board for Ohio State. You've seen optimism coming out of Ann Arbor around both of those guys recently. How realistic is that, and how concerned should Ohio State be on both of those?
Yeah, I'm not buying the Michigan smoke at all with either of them. I think, Bryce West, he's a Glenville guy, so you always wonder how long, those guys are going to take it. Are they going to go until December and kind of make Ohio State sweat, or, are they going to, we did see Arvell Reese get tired of the process a little bit early last year, committed in the summer, so I've got Ohio State landing both of them. I would say probably by the end of the summer would be my timeline for each of them. I tend to think they're going to take an official visit, at least to Ohio State in June, and we'll see what they do with their other visits if they take some. But, I don't know that they're coming here in the next. I know a lot of people are thinking, they're going to get them like this week. I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be stunned. The timing on these things is always kind of weird because, kids and their emotions, and, you never quite know if they're going to wait or just, pull the trigger, get it over with. But, I think a 2 month, 2.5 month time frame for those guys is probably reasonable to expect. And, like I said, I have not understood the Michigan smoke around either one. It's not to say we don't take Michigan seriously when they're in a recruiting battle with Ohio State. I mean, we kind of took them seriously with Jordan Marshall and some of the other linemen and such. But these are two that, I was told very early on were going to be really tough to get away, from the Buckeyes. And I think they've got all the momentum with these two. And I think I don't know where a lot of this has even really come from for these two specifically.
And just so people know, those are guys who both project to probably play in one of the outside corner positions. Is that right?
Scott for sure. I think they're recruiting West to play outside, but I do think Bryce has kind of the skill set to maybe bump in and play the nickel corner slot. But I think right now they're kind of telling those guys both outside.
And one other guy who could end up as the slot corner in this class, it seems like it might be trending in the right direction, is Miles Lockhart. He's out of Arizona. And if you pull up his recruiting profile on at least one of the national sites, you're going to see him as a running back and be very confused why Ohio State is recruiting a third running back in this class. They are looking at him as a slot corner. And, that's an area where Ohio State has pulled some talent recently. They've in fact pulled guys out of the safety room recently Kai Stokes and Lathan Ransom, right? And so, that's an area where Ohio State has gone to the well before with some success. Where do things stand right now with Miles Lockhart?
Yeah, so, like you said, Ohio State's been a factor in Arizona the last few years. Obviously, Denzel Burke, Lathan Ransom, those guys. But with Miles, they're in the driver's seat right now, and it's kind of a matter of, okay, could this happen in the next couple weeks, or he's got an official visit scheduled in June? Is it more likely that maybe something would happen coming out of the official, or would he end it early and just take the official as a committed player in June? And so I think that's kind of the question right now, as Ohio State really jumps out to the lead. Here's the other thing to consider, though. They've made a really good run here lately at Xavier Brown, a corner out of Mater Dei, and there's a lot of stuff to kind of process as we kind of talk about corners. Once we get past the two Ohio kids who obviously are the priority and they're going to take them whenever they can take them, once you get past that, things get really interesting, because you do have Lockhart here, who they're leading for, who's a kind of a nickel, a slot guy who kind of fits in well with some of the other pieces they've got. But you've got this momentum with Xavier Brown out of Mater Dei. They have to break through at Mater Dei. They have been trying for almost a decade at this point to break through at Mater Dei. They've not been able to do it. So if you can get Brown, you kind of have to take him. He's a tremendous player in any scenario. He's a tremendous player, but you have to finally crack this Mater Dei program. It's one of the top 4 or 5 programs in the country. So if you can have some type of foothold at both Bosco and Mater Dei, where you can be factors for players at both those programs, that's such a big thing. So it becomes, now we get into the numbers thing, and I don't know if I'm stealing, a question from you later on here, but like, that's 4 corners right there if they can get all those guys, and they are really swinging away at Charles Lester, the 5-star corner out of Florida. So it's like, how do you manage the numbers here? It's going to be an interesting thing.
Yeah, that's going to definitely be something they have to keep an eye on, which I guess those numbers are not quite as firm as they used to be, with the transfer portal being you get a little more flexibility in terms of roster construction and hitting that 85 cap and all that kind of stuff. But, you also run into, hey, if there's 5 corners in my class, there's only so many spots on the field. So that'll be an interesting thing to keep watching. I do want to congratulate you on being very subtle in pointing out that I'm an idiot and Kai Stokes is from Florida, and I was thinking of Denzel Burke. Well done there. That was very subtle. You're much nicer on that kind of stuff than Tony is. So let's talk about one more guy, a little closer to home, Reggie Powers, in-state safety for 2024. He's someone who I feel like we've kind of had on commitment watch for a little while. And, as you have said earlier, the win is not always the most important part. It's what everyone's interested in, but it's not the most important part. He's someone who seems like he could be in this class relatively soon. What would he bring? Where does he potentially fit in on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, they're recruiting him to play safety. And so that'll be, whether it's free or strong, I would imagine at this point, probably strong. He's running track. I know they're going to, even if he commits between now and June, I'm sure they're going to want to work him out and just get a better feel for where exactly he would slot into the secondary. But he is a safety. He's not a corner. I think it's just a matter of, again, does he run well enough to kind of play that free safety spot? But I'm a little bit surprised we're talking about him today as an uncommitted prospect. I kind of thought that might happen here a little quicker coming out of the offer, but it feels like it's just kind of a matter of time there. as Ohio State's kind of trying to lock in kind of these in-state guys right now, and then that'll leave them X amount of spots left for these guys that are kind of going after out of state. But he's a very physical kid. He plays all over the defense for Centerville, which I think again is good in that he's versatile and does a lot of things well, but is also okay. Now you can only play one position at a time. And Ohio State, more so than like a high school program, is kind of less inclined to move guys and play them all 2 or 3 different positions. So just kind of figuring out exactly what type of role would best fit him at Ohio State is kind of the key here. But yeah, really physical kid, and I like the way he comes up and hits, and he's got good size, college-ready body. He's like 6'1", 195, so he's definitely an interesting guy.
All right, so there you go. You can take a step back from the ledge. That's at least your back 7 for Ohio State on defense, where guys there may be in some decent shape for, and uncommitted yet, but potentially guys to be keeping an eye on moving forward in terms of guys that could help fill out the defensive side of this Ohio State class. And I can already hear the YouTube comments coming. What about the defensive line? It's a big year on the defensive line. You go, what about the defensive line? Well, good news. We do like 300 of these shows a year. So I'm sure we're going to get to the where things stand on the defensive line class probably after the spring game. At this point, there's going to be a busy week leading up to the spring game, and then obviously a very busy week of recruiting news generally following that spring game. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but generally Ohio State's 2024 recruiting class seems like it's in decent shape right now, and they're definitely, if you are a believer in momentum on the recruiting trail, they might be one of the hottest teams in the nation right now in terms of recruiting for the 2024 class. So there you go. Some actual, honest to goodness, good news for you. How about that? Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you'd like more good news, you can find it on the Huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Mark and Alex do a ton of recruiting coverage there. Mark does his weekly Skull Session column. Alex does his weekly ADEC column. They do the daily Eyes on the Trail column. Lots of great stuff there. Plus Tony and Kevin and covering the team. Ross and Mick and Mickey Pettit and Devin and Justin, all covering X's and O's, schematic stuff, making you a smarter football fan. You can find that all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So why don't you find it today? Sign up, become a member, and get access to all that great stuff, plus a fantastic community, lots of fun comments, fun threads on our message board, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.